So you get your old cereal packet, just like this, and this. Fold that bit over there so you can see it taking shape. A bit of double-sided sticky tape on there, and there. Egg box on top. A bit of paint there, and a bit of paint here. Silver spray there, and bollocking bollocks. It's meant to be the Failing Writers podcast. Doesn't really... No, not sure what I've done there. Oh well, here's one I made earlier.
Right, so we're back after a long, relaxing break. So I would assume, and people will be assuming as well, that we've got everything absolutely sorted for the end of this season.
Nailed. Set in stone.
Uncomfortably so. Do you know what I mean? Like, really, like, rigid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we've got plenty of episodes in the bag now, and we can sit back.
Locked in, as really annoying people say.
We have actually got loads and loads of stuff sort of half booked in and coming
We do,
up.
to be fair,
we've half done loads of things.
As is our way.
We've got a lot of exciting stuff, actually.
Should we talk about them now, or should we tease it till the end to make our big announcement that we've got coming up? Because we have literally spent weeks organising this.
You're saying it like that's sarcastic, Dave, but that is actually true.
That is true.
That is true. I can barely hold myself back from revealing it all. But
it's what often gets you in trouble, that though, doesn't it, Dave?
I know it does. Yeah, really, just stop revealing myself. But somebody needs to stop me, because otherwise I'm just going to lay it all out on the line.
Well, why don't you do that, Dave? You obviously want to do it. Tell us what. It's so exciting, we can't bear not to tell everybody.
We have got...
Don't tell us now, Dave.
Oh.
We'll do it after we've spoken to our guest.
Fine, all right. Who are we talking to today?
Today, mate, we're talking to Benjamin Stevenson, mate. And he's from Australia.
Oh, it's Australia. Right, okay, sorry.
That's why I was doing the...
Is he expecting us to do an Australian accent?
We don't have to Australia it
for the
up,
whole...
I think. Yeah,
okay, cool.
But yeah, no, so he's literally on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So we're having to do this at a slightly awkward time at night, just so he can do it at a slightly awkward time in the morning.
Yeah, that's the best we could work out. It's the true nature of compromise, isn't it? That no one ends up happy.
Yeah. Although we did try and do this interview a couple of weeks back, but Benjamin forgot to set his alarm clock properly, didn't we? But I would imagine we will get through the entire interview without mentioning that.
I expect so. That would just be tactless and unprofessional to bring it up at any point.
Yeah, I don't think it's not going to come up, is it?
To be fair on him, he did agree to do the interview at 6 o'clock in the morning, which was quite foolish.
We did think that was a bit too much, didn't we? But he seemed
very confident.
I wouldn't have turned up, I'll be honest with you.
No, I wouldn't have done. Not for us.
No. I'm still not entirely confident he's going to turn up this week. But he seemed even more confident.
Building drama, isn't it? This is what we're all about. It's building that tension.
Hey, he's going to be with us in a few minutes. And before he is with us, after a break like that, we probably do owe ourselves and our listeners to ask the question. What have you been writing, boys?
Do you know what?
What have you been writing? What have you been writing?
I've been writing something.
What have you been writing, Dave?
Well, I sort of, following on from the Spooky Warbook critique episode, I finally went back and I read through the book.
Oh, did you?
I've made a load of notes and I've got a really clear idea of what to do with it next.
Any big changes? Any big changes?
Yeah, some quite big changes, like cutting characters out and cutting scenes out and putting new bits in. Quite substantial changes to be made. And then following on from sort of John's thing with the ladder, the David Quantick, focus on a few things, I thought, right, this is exactly what I'm just going to focus on doing this Spooky War, but I'm not going to do anything else. That's what I'm going to work on. And then I got a bit bored and I started writing something else. So I spent the last few days, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to write a play. So I've started doing that. I've written.
Brilliant. So you've just added a few more rungs to your ladder.
Yeah. Well, it was just there. Like an idea came to me.
Oh, so this is a new idea. This isn't a thing that's been hanging around for a while.
Well, no. So this is. I think I mentioned it before. A friend and I put something together to enter a competition last year.
Not the pub quiz.
Not the pub quiz. This was.
Oh, right.
This was the one. The concept about what happens to you when you die. And then, so the basic idea is when you die, your spirit is free to roam the earth, go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do for all eternity, unless someone dedicates a park bench to your memory. In which case, your spirit is tied to a 2-meter radius around that bench for all eternity. And I always really liked that concept. So I thought, I'm just going to start writing about that. And I wrote a couple of 1,000 words last night.
Bloody hell, mate.
So, yeah.
Good work.
So, yes, that's what happens when you make a commitment to do one thing.
Yeah,
And
I'm very impressed. So, and how much of Poker Night have you written?
I started writing a beat outline document based on what you wrote, John.
Oh, you're kidding?
And I only got as far as the beats in the bit that you've written. I didn't actually get any further than that. So I've basically taken what you did and reduced that down.
Like a semi-quaver.
Yeah, exactly. Reduced that down to what didn't need to be there.
Well, I think you sent that through, didn't you, Dave? So when you sent that beat sheet through, what I did was I turned that into the start of an episode. But it was just I just copied what John had done because it was obviously the same beats. Yeah. So just literally cut and paste John's bit onto my Poker Night thing.
We did have an idea though, didn't we, about like how to sort of
we did. Yeah, we fleshed out the story.
I think the trouble is we kind of had a bit of a bounce round of that idea, didn't we? And the kind of the overall arc and that kind of that character and how she sort of sat in it.
Yeah.
And then I think we all kind of went, oh, good, well, that's sorted then, isn't it? That makes sense now. Unfortunately, psychologically, that was like, cool, well, that doesn't need doing then, does it?
Done, isn't it? That's finished.
That's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look after itself.
But we've made a start.
Yeah.
And the only way to get to the end is to begin. I'm sure somebody said that.
That's good. I'm going to write that down. That's good.
Well,
I've got a little bit of an excuse because I was on holiday. But I added a little bit more. I took my little mini iPad thing and I wrote about 1,500 words I've added to my murder mystery.
Murder mystery.
So that's something, isn't it? It's not brilliant, but it's something.
Good. On a little iPad, that's got to be quite difficult to type on one of them.
It's not easy.
That's got to be the equivalent of 3,000 or 4,000 words, isn't it? On a proper
I think so.
screen.
I think that's how it works. What about you, Tommy?
Well,
anything?
and Dave was saying there about adopting the quantic ladder, as we'll probably now call it. It sounds like that should be a sci-fi. That sounds like it's a 1970s sci-fi thing, doesn't it?
I like
to the
that.
quantic ladder.
Quantic ladder. So just about really focusing in on. So I thought, right, well, let's just Poker Night. We need to do something on Poker Night. Let's do that. That was on the ladder. And then I wrote a play.
Oh,
excuse me?
You wrote a play?
I think, Dave, from what you've said, it might be the same one that you did last year to enter into that thing. Because it was about a bench. It had to be about a bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw that. I just thought, I thought, oh, yeah, I should. I always think, oh, yeah, I should do that, and then never do it. But I thought, oh, I actually will do it this time. So I did.
And you did
Thoroughly
do it.
enjoyed it.
Ah,
wow.
15-minute comedy play.
I feel a bit left out now.
Have you not written a play?
About a
You've not
bench.
written a play, John?
Not about a
Bloody
bench.
hell.
Oh, John.
No. All right. Get on it.
Yeah, and I've been editing Chad Nadworthy.
Oh, nice.
And started on a bit of flash fiction.
What was that? What was that?
Good grief. See, I tell you
Yeah,
what,
you have been busy.
this little we ought to have a mid-season break every week.
Yeah.
Don't
Because
we?
we seem to get quite a lot done.
So anyway, yeah, been writing stuff.
Oh,
haven't I?
well done, man. That's brilliant.
Good, well done, Tom. Well done. I'll say it really high.
Means more.
Well done, Tom.
Oh, do you like it?
How do you like it? Oh, I just I go to say something genuine, and then it goes really high, and then it sounds like I'm taking the mick. Oh, well done, Tom.
But then people say, oh, yes, it must be good. Dave speaks very highly of it. Oh, yeah, no, that's just the way. Yeah, sometimes he does that.
It just goes like that sometimes.
Right, well, we've just got a slightly awkward
5 minutes to kill.
wait now, haven't we?
Yeah.
See whether Benjamin turns up this time.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we weren't going to.
No, I won't mention that at all. No.
What should we ask him then when he comes on? Should we ask him what he thinks about Neighbours finishing? Or is that racist if I ask him that?
Could be stereotyping, Tom.
I wonder how long the people from Neighbours will be able to still get jobs in pantomimes.
That's a good point.
Like, how long will the echoes of it go through the cultural relevance of pantomime season? At what point will Harold be no longer...
You've either got to go to Hollywood quite quickly, haven't you? Or it's the
Then
pantomime
at some point
for you.
people forget that Neighbours existed.
Yeah, it's got to be tricky for those people because there are a lot of a big list of people who started in Neighbours and then did really well for themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's those who were in Neighbours, then left to go and do other things. They didn't work out, So then they went back to Neighbours for 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
What are they going to do now? Stefan Dennis?
Yeah. Well, he had a pretty blistering pop career as well, didn't he? So he's all right.
He was big in Germany
Some good stuff.
for a while, but then he
Like
went
a
back,
second-rate Hasselhoff. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Same. I think he had the same leather jacket.
Right.
And he sort of literally limped back into Neighbours, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Somebody's knocking at the door.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks, Benjamin. How are you?
Very good. Hey, thanks for having me, by the way. And I'm so sorry.
Hey, well, thanks for turning
slept
up,
through the
Benjamin.
first one. I know.
Thanks for coming.
I'm aware I've got the mountain to climb of having previously been a dick, of missing the entire thing.
No, we were just saying in the intro in the middle that we wouldn't mention that. So
Yeah.
when we failed,
Will
but
not.
Oh, mention
From this
away.
point onward, we'll barely mention it.
Better late than never. That's what they say, isn't it? So we're just we're really chuffed that you're with us now.
Well, thanks for
Well, we
having me.
say that. We'll see how the interview goes. The interview might be rubbish. We might be regretting it afterwards as well. But hopefully it'll go well.
You never know. Yeah.
We never know. So quickly, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself in terms of what you do and what you do? Those two things.
Good question, Tom.
Yes, about me, speed dating. So I've been doing stand-up comedy for about 15 years. I started at university, and I also studied a bit of English at university, but sort of never thought that writing would be a practical way to make a career. Like, I thought it was really hard to get into, and it was. But so I did stand up. Well, stand up is hard to get into as well. So I did stand up for the next 10 years, but then I found myself sort of drawn back to it a little bit. So then I started writing crime and working behind the scenes at a couple of publishing houses as well, sort of using the skills that I had that would eventually lead to me writing my novels. And then I wrote a couple of noir crime books, which were very serious and not particularly funny at all. And then
Were they meant to be funny? Were you trying to be funny, or were they?
No,
They weren't just falling completely flat. They were quite. You intended them to be.
No,
serious.
I was very set on a goal that the books that I was writing at the time would be very different from my stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, I sort of thought, well, I feel like I'm going into battle with half a quiver full of arrows. Why aren't I using all of the skills I have? If I feel I can write good mysteries, then that's good. And if I feel I can write good comedy, then that's good too. Why the hell aren't I doing both at the same time? And so that is how I wrote my latest book, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone.
Which is a fantastic title, isn't it, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I think I gave the designer a heart attack when they saw how many
Too many words.
words were in it. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, that's a long one." When I pitched it to them, and I was like, "Trust me, it'll work."
Where did the title I assume that's the kind of the big idea of the book, as it were. Did that kind of come first as a where did the idea come from? I guess is the way what I'm trying to ask in a really bad. We've just come off a bit of a break, Benjamin, and we're not quite. So some of the questions might be a little bit ropey. Just fill in the gaps.
That's all right. Well, it's early morning Australia, so some of the answers might be a little bit ropey as well. The title was very, very much at the start. I sort of, just as a collection of words, it's a good one. Like on just surface level, I sort of knew that, if I can write a book to match this, I might be onto something. But also structurally, it sort of dictates the structure of the novel as well. So the ideas came at the same time, and the novel is structured in each family member's section about who they murder, and then there's an overall serial killer as well, so who is part of the family. So it's sort of a mystery of which one, but there's also 7 mini mysteries as we discover who each person has killed. And so I knew once I had that structure, then I knew the title sort of, it just popped in and then it was there, which is quite rare for me. Normally I put titles on at the end.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, the title is the concept. It's good. I've got a question for you about titles, actually. I've always wondered why books have different titles, like in different regions. Like Greenlight is different, isn't it, in Britain and America? What's that about? And they have slightly different covers too. Is there like a science behind that? Is that like a focus group thing? Or
it must be on the publisher's end. I mean, I think different publishers feel like books slot in different part of their market. I mean, Greenlight, which was my first novel, was here in Australia as what we call a C format paperback, which is slightly larger, sort of the size of your hardbacks. and we don't have a lot of hardback-led fiction. But in the UK, for example, where it was published as She Lies in the Vines, it was published as a paperback original, so it was a different size as well. So they wanted the colours and the cover to sort of change to match that is one thing. And then just sort of where the genre lines go in Australia, crime and sort of, let's call it upmarket commercial, which is sort of that, it's just on the edge of literary. They combine a little bit here. And also it's just publisher ownership, it's they want to do their edition, I think, and they want to put their stamp on it. It was what I got the feeling of. But this book, the title's in the first line and it's referenced numerous times through the text. So I was like, good luck changing it.
Keeping this
like, get out of that one.
Is it been greenlit for HBO, for an HBO series? Did I read that right?
Yes, yeah. So we're making an unlimited series with
brilliant.
HBO.
That'd be brilliant if Benjamin didn't know that and you just announced it to him somehow.
What?
Really? What? That's amazing.
So does that mean that is actually going ahead? That's not just like an option that might just sit in someone's collection for...
Well, tell that to Catwoman.
Yeah, or Batgirl.
Batgirl, that's the one. I knew it was a combination of an animal and a female thing. Yeah.
Look,
tell that to Owl Child Woman.
I think, it's an option, but it's a very serious option. So where it's all systems go, it seems, from my end. But of course, anything can happen in Hollywood, so you never really know. But it seems like it's all going well.
And what's your level of involvement in that? Then, in theory, what's the...
So...
Are you going to be out there, sat in your own chair with your name on with a megaphone, or are you just going to be reading emails and getting the odd thing through in Australia?
I don't know if they'll give me a megaphone. I think Hollywood tends
just
to
take your own. Take your own. Do you know what I mean? It's like your first day at big school or prison. You've got to find the biggest guy and smack him one. Same kind of thing in Hollywood. Take your own megaphone.
I think if you asked on set, can I have a megaphone, please? I'm the writer. I think you'd be laughed out of the set probably. But I've got I'm an executive producer on it, which I got to be honest, I don't know entirely what I have to do, but I think I sort of float around the edges and consult on things. But I would really love to go and visit. I've never seen a film getting made, and I think those parts. I'm very trusting of HBO and what they will do. So I sort of want to be involved, not so much to have as much of my opinion. I sort of see it as the book is the book and I wrote the book and I want to see what someone else can make. I don't want to push my influence too hard on it. And, some authors are very attached and very involved and that's another way of doing it. But I'm sort of like, I want to see it, I want to see what you do with it. But I also want to see all the behind the scenes because that's super cool. And how often do you get to be involved with that? So that's sort of my job.
I just go for the catering, to be honest.
Because they've had a couple of hits, haven't they? HBO, so they've
done a few good things, haven't they?
I feel like they've done all right. Yeah,
the odd one.
Yeah.
What sort of style is your stand-up then, in terms of how that reflects into your writing? What is it? Is there a direct link in there, or is it just I'm kind of funny? I'm funny in both, but in different ways. What's the link?
They're quite different. So my stand-up is musical comedy. So I perform funny songs with my identical twin brother.
It's difficult to get across in a novel, isn't it? Really, it doesn't really sit well in a novel.
No, it's hard to.
unless it was like one of those. Do you know the birthday cards you get? I don't know if you still get them. When you open them, they play a tune
on the inside cover, or just at the top of the page. Just write this page is in E minor, and then you just have to read it in your head in a certain note. But yeah, so we sing funny songs like Flight of the Conchords kind of thing. So that's very different. But I would say that because I perform with my brother, I mean, family is always a topic that I use in my novels, and particularly tensions between brothers. And so I think I am able to do that quite well. And also comedy, like good comedy, is very structural, particularly say something you'd see at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is a narrative comedy hour. It's got all the tenets of good novels, and it's got all the callbacks at the end where you tie in the structure of surprises, and those surprises lead to laughs. And in crime fiction, the surprises lead to gasps, and that's the only difference. And so it's the same kind of weaving in of clues and intent and themes, just on a larger scale. And you can also be more serious in the novel. You can sort of be like, I want to deal with this theme and tackle it head on.
Is your comedy act? is it exclusively with your brother? He's identical twin.
Yes, yeah. So he's my twin. And
I was
he,
going to say he is, but you're not.
yeah, yeah. We had an actor. We hired an actor. It was a long process to get someone who looks exactly the same as me. Yeah, no, I just do it with my brother. We've done a couple of shows where we go up on our own and tell each other's jokes to make fun of each other, but that's only like at a special event or something. So yes, we're an exclusive monogamous comedy relationship.
Nice. You must occasionally get fed up of each other and think, oh, I could just go and do my own thing for a bit, or is that would that be frowned upon?
All the time, I would say. I'd say there's a constant looming threat of leaving the band.
That seems to be part of the comedy, to be fair. It's like
well, you can tell
a constant ribbing of each other.
Yes, because we've got sort of, we insult each other on stage, and you can sort of tell when we've had a real fight during the day.
Yeah,
but some things are just a bit more acidic. You're like, oh, where did that come from? That's not in the script. I mean, the script is mean, but that's not in the script, so it bleeds through.
Your twin isn't a writer as well?
No, he's not. But what he likes doing is whenever he reads one of my books, he tells me afterwards, he's like, I gave you that idea 10 years ago. You just forgot about it. I gave you that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And he's like, nah, royalties, mate. Hand them over. So yeah, he likes to think he is. He's quite good actually, because he's one of my first readers. So my publisher reads it, and my brother reads it. And my publisher gives me useful notes. You know, fix this, this character arc, etc., as any good publisher will do. And my brother goes, this bit's boring, not enough blood and guts, needs some murders here, what the hell, all that kind of stuff, which is quite good because he's just a reader. So I'm like, oh, okay, no one's died in a couple of pages. It's a murder mystery in a couple of 100 pages. I better inject some action in. So he's good for that.
It'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it, if he could guess who the killer was every
Well,
time?
he writes it down in his notes app when he gets halfway through. And he's normally pretty good because we have the same brain. So what he's good at is he'll know when I've put something on the page that you're not supposed to look at. Like he'll just know the way I've written it.
Yeah.
He'll be like, that comma was weird, which drew my attention to this sentence, which is actually, I'm like, God damn, how'd you do that? But also he was completely wrong on everyone in my family has killed someone, and so I'm quite proud of that.
That's good.
Oh, that's good.
That is good.
Why mystery, Benjamin? What drew you to that particular genre?
I mean, the honest answer is I just love it. I've always read crime and mystery novels, and I just love the inherent suspense, and any genre with rules to it, I am a huge fan of. So because I'm a big fan of what stories can do when they have a set of rules that they both need to adhere to in order to give you that automatic satisfaction. You know what you're getting into. There's going to be a dead body. There's going to be a detective. There's going to be a killer. And insert variations here. But it's also quite exciting when the books then push up against those rules, because you sort of know what you're getting, and you can't break them entirely, but you can sort of be innovative. So I think that crime, it's so exciting from that suspense. My other favorite genre, which I would never write in, but I love like films and stuff, about time travel for the same reason. You know, we know what we're getting in a time travel. You know the rules just from being in the world and having ever heard about time travel before. And so as soon as you go into the movie, you sort of buy into those, okay, well, what are they doing here? Is it parallel universes? What rules are they going to break? Which bit is going to not make sense? Because there's always one bit that never makes sense. And so that's a good example of sort of why I like crime, because it's the same thing. But also I just think it's a great way to look at, you know, what people will do to each other. It's a really good way to sort of get into characters in extreme situations, and they're pacey and they're fun, and I love reading them. So that's why I wrote them.
This is going to sound like a weird question, but how did you get good at writing? Like, did you... Was it from just reading a lot? Was it doing a course? Was it just practicing? Or were you just magically brilliant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a couple of answers. The real answer is reading. Just reading as widely as possible. I think I tell everyone that sort of asks for advice is read. But also reading outside your genre. reading across the board, I think, develops skills that you can then put into the genre you love. You don't even have to use them, but if they're sitting in the back of your head and you know what other people are doing, even if it's serious literary fiction or rom-coms or whatever, and then you sit down to write your crime novel, you sort of have all the skills such that if you do need a scene which leans on something else, some other genre, it becomes quite useful. So reading widely is the key. I've never done a course. I don't quite believe in them. I think they're very good for self-motivation and sort of people who want to structure their writing and have somebody give them deadlines. Don't know if they're great for developing skills. That said, I've never done one, so I don't mean to sort of put them down or anything. But then the other answer is, this book here, that everyone in my family has killed someone, is my third novel and my fifth piece of writing, because I've got a couple of novellas as well. And I think it's my best one. It's easily reached the widest audience. And so that's just the practice of doing the books before. But also when I sat down to write this book, I'd written a couple of books. I had a contract with a publisher to write another one, which is very lucky situation to be in. And I just thought, well, maybe this is my chance to have the comfort that this book will be published and I can write whatever I want. So this was a real kind of, imagine this is the last book I ever do and I get to write it right now. What am I going to put in here that I'm going to regret not putting in there if I don't put it in, So the key to sort of unlocking the lift in writing that I think I found in this book was just letting myself completely go, being open to it and trying everything and being trying to be innovative and interesting, which, it didn't always work. We had to edit a bunch of stuff, but I think that at the end of the day, it's a unique and interesting book that is the best one I've written. And that just sort of came from breaking all those sort of things that I put, I've got to write like this because I want it to be published or I want to break through or whatever. I'm like, no, this book is for me. Let's just go for it. And so that, I think, is what helped my writing the most.
I think that's a huge thing, isn't it? And people often try chasing the zeitgeist in order to get published or thinking, well, I've got to write something like this or whatever. But the entire process takes so long that that's actually impossible to do, isn't it? You just got to, like you say, write what you believe in and keep your fingers crossed that it is flavour of the month when it comes to the point of getting it in front of publishers.
If you're writing for a genre, you've already missed it, is the general publishing axiom. But I think, with this book was quite interesting because I pitched it to my publisher and I was like, I think I sent them the first chapter, which has a bit of postmodernism in it, which is a word you never want to use to your commercial fiction publisher, by the way. They balk. So I was like, I've got this book. It's going to be slightly funny. It's still going to be a murder mystery and it's going to be a bit postmodern. And my publisher is very trusting. And she was like, oh, okay, I trust you to deliver something good, but, this one sounds interesting, which is the publisher's way of saying, I'm not sure. And then 6 months later, I was into writing it and the Thursday Murder Club came out, which is lighthearted crime. And my publisher was like, hey, how's that lighthearted murder mystery you're writing going?
The one that I really liked, the one that I said
right from the start.
Always loved it.
She always really liked it. I want to be clear on that point. She always did really like it and support it, but I didn't have all the ideas. I was like, how about I do this and this and this and this? So it was very much, she was sort of withering a barrage of ideas for me and being like, there's something there, but I don't think you know what it is yet. And I'm like, that is correct. But in terms of the zeitgeist, I was partly writing in a funny way because I was writing during the pandemic and I didn't want to write something too grisly or whatever, but I was accidentally writing on the zeitgeist before another author cracked it open, which I'm really grateful for.
Just out of interest, how different was the finished version to your first draft?
It was structurally very similar, but some plot lines, I did a lot of work on. It's tricky when you're doing sort of a golden age Agatha Christie homage detective novel because you can't take any shortcuts. So every part of the mystery has to be bulletproof. And my editors really pushed me on that, which is great. So the finished version has a couple of changes in it to the plot. all the people do what they still did, but some of the motivations I've moved around and some of the clues I made more significant. So it's probably about a third is completely different. And it's easily the biggest changes I've ever made to a book in editorial, because I'm quite a heavy plotter.
Right.
Yeah. And also I think the first draft probably has more jokes in it. I was being a bit pithy around a lot of dead bodies, and so I sort of had to massage the tone and make sure my characters were a bit more empathetic when their family members were getting knocked off one by one. So I think we changed a bit of that as well, for the better.
Well, you promised you'd actually do something productive today, didn't you? And listening to the Failing Writers podcast sort of counts, doesn't it? Of course it does. You just relax and listen to the rest of it.
Have you written any more books, as in before you were published? Do you have any from your kind of younger, greener days that you'd prefer to forget about?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about the embarrassing stuff, Benjamin.
I've got a couple. I wrote a book before I got published, like imminently before, that was roundly rejected by all publishers, that's safely in the desk drawer.
See, this is what we want to hear about.
Yeah, this is the good stuff.
I'm proud that I wrote it. I learned a lot writing it, and it connected me with my current publisher, who said, "This is really good. We can't publish that. Ed, please send us your next novel," which at the time feels crushing.
Yeah.
But then I sent them the next novel, and they said, "I remember you from that book that we couldn't quite publish."
Oh, wow.
This one's a lot less crap.
Yeah, exactly. The writing's gotten a bit better, and so we'd like to publish it. So it's sort of a stepping stone.
Oh, they actually did say that. Right.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone that was really,
Cool.
really useful, and no time spent writing is ever wasted. It always just builds you up. But also, I'll say, like I said, I work behind the scenes in publishing, and some people have asked me whether that's a shortcut or an easy ticket. Did you get all the contacts and you were just able to get through? And I'm like, no, I wrote an entire novel that everyone in an industry...
Like some kind of literature spy.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
you've worked yourself in as a mole on the inside.
Get in and then...
Oh, look at this manuscript that's just come in. Oh, put that on the yes pile. Some cunning plot.
Who's
Yeah.
Benjamin Beemanson?
Yeah.
But also, there's so many levels, right? So first of all, I'm in the industry and have shared the people who know me who have then rejected a book. You got to have thick skin for that, right? And the other thing about it is people who are like, oh, that's a shortcut, don't know how hard working in publishing is. I started on a reception desk, and you work long hours, and it's all you start at the bottom of the rung in publishing. And I'm like, nobody would do that just to get a book published. You have to do it because you love books and you love making books and working with authors. And that's why I did it. In terms of shortcut, it's the long way because you don't have time to write. You're too busy working. So yeah, there's that. And then other books I wrote a book when I was 10, which was called Not Expecting Doom. And it was about me and my brother going into the basement of our house, which we didn't have because Australian houses don't have basements very often, and encountering ghosts and ghouls and stuff. And I remember it was 35 pages, and somebody at school told me that a book had to be 40 pages. I don't know why. And so
you were just gutted.
I increased the font size to get to 38 pages.
To be fair, I've seen that book. I've seen that trick before in books.
Yeah,
definitely.
totally. So I increased the font size. And we're talking, because it was 35 pages, but it was already very supposed to, it's a 10-year-old. It's not 35 pages being about 10,000 words. It's 35 pages being about 3,000 words. So the font size was comically large. Huge. There were 10 words on a page. Anyway, then it was 38 pages. So then I added a scene where one character screamed, "No!" And it went across multiple pages, and I got to 40 pages. And I'm like, that is the best book that's ever been written.
That is good. You see, that's creative.
Yeah.
And that's the one that HBO's picked up. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. That one's Spielberg, actually.
Yeah. Just those. Imagine the critics now. I mean, it started off okay, it was good, but those last 12 minutes of the no, they were amazing. Amazing TV.
That's what really made it.
And it was very odd that it was in slow motion, so the runtime padded out. That was weird as well.
Yeah. The only downside was they didn't manage to edit out the guy on the megaphone in the background because it came through too loud.
Keep going. Keep more O's. More O's.
We're only on 34 pages. Come on. Yeah. That sounds brilliant. Was there a plot to it then, or was it just kind of a? Do you remember?
Not really. So
or did it just kind of fumble its way along? Into
I remember there were
various...
skeletons, like skeletons that came alive, but one of them was good. And then I remember there was an island. We all went to an island, but I remember the first sentence. So the title was "Not Expecting Doom," and the first sentence was, I won't get it exactly right, but it was a regular Monday morning, and I was not expecting doom. And then a couple of sentences later, it was,
straight in, linking to the
I
title
know, right?
straight away. That's
I've kept that writing technique all the way through my
Yeah,
career.
hold on a minute. Yeah, that's just.
And then a couple of sentences later in the paragraph was, and then I walked down the stairs to the basement, and guess what I found? Doom. Yeah.
You could have got it up to 50 pages.
I could have. I need to go back and edit it. Doom's a great word, though.
Probably
I mean, that's
the O key on your keyboard is probably broken.
yeah, absolutely. It's an underrated word, Doom. I reckon. That's
Yeah.
got legs, actually.
Yeah, it might be worth revisiting that one for your next book.
Yeah, you could add a few more pages into that.
Yeah.
My old trick was there, and I went downstairs, but there wasn't any doom in there. So when I went into another room, there was some doom in there. Then you've added
added
an
a bit
extra
more,
scene
yeah.
in there, haven't you?
Oh, that's good.
You can
Yeah,
see
that's
this
better.
running
That's
and
very
running.
good. Or just the classic, the R.L. Stein Goosebumps cliffhangers, which as a kid I just tore through. And the cliffhanger's like, and then the shadow came out of nowhere and it was holding a knife and it raised the knife and then the next chapter is, oh, hi, Bob, I said, and it wasn't a knife at all. He was holding a glass of Coke. And it's just like, there's no like resolution to actually what's happened in the last. They just completely change it. Oh, I'm sorry, I mistook that gun that I thought you were going to shoot me with for an Xbox controller.
I'm just writing all these ideas down, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could use that.
But I think actually, while we're just on the sort of silliness that they're not expecting doom kind of thing, which I haven't really thought about. But there's a chapter in this book that's one sentence long, which every reader is like, oh my God, I love chapter 9. Because you're in the middle of a scene and then the chapter breaks and then chapter 9 is the narrator saying something and then it switches immediately to chapter 10. And that's, I've just looked at the typeset here, that takes up about 5 pages. So I'm inadvertently using that technique, but it's also, it's honestly, it's my favorite part of the novel.
It's the skills you learn as a child, isn't it? That carry you through your whole career.
Yeah, I never thought that has come from little old not expecting doom, but there you go.
So, despite you saying that your career in publishing hasn't, massively furthered your writing, you obviously do have a kind of an inside track. I'm guessing on how the industry works, and things like how to write a good query and stuff like that. Do you have any advice for us, for a bunch of failing writers? Like, if we ever do actually manage to finish a book that we're actually happy with, what would be the key things to remember when approaching an agent?
I think there's a couple of bits that I think I have got from the job, which I think are useful. And the first is just on the publication side. There's just knowing the background, and what's likely happening and what's realistic and what's unrealistic. And so my expectations, I like to think, are reasonably fair. And that means that I can sort of focus on the books more. Like it doesn't stress me out if there's a sales number that's less than I dreamed about when I started writing books, because it's a real industry that works in real terms. And I think I'm able to do that a little better. So I think that's really, really helped. But in terms of an agent side, I mean, the best thing you can do, the best way to think about an agent is it's it's changed so much, and agents are becoming more and more important, I think, in terms of accessing the publishing mainstream. But writers who consider agents as these evil gatekeepers, I think, and I understand it's easy to get frustrated with waiting for your submission to be read, or agents not taking on a book. But I think the best way to view an agent is that you are going up to someone and you are saying, would you like to start a business relationship with me? So you're not saying, please choose my book. You're saying, would you like to work together in a mutually advantageous business relationship? So the more that you can sort of think of it, there's a very dull way of putting it, but the more that you can sort of think of it as, who would you like to team up with? And you're going to be working together. You're not working for the agent. The agent is basically working for you. So it's weird, the structure of applying to an agent for you to hire them is inherently psychologically odd, because it comes across as the author really trying to appeal to the agent, when it comes down to a book that we love, we desperately want to sign you. You know, we're trying to pitch to you. So it's just sort of understanding that, and that can sort of help with some of the frustrations that can come in submissions, which are all very difficult. But I think also, you know, just in terms of that, it's a business relationship thing, you know, polite, respectful, clean, concise, just emailing, formatting, follow the directions on the website. That all goes such a long way. You know, you'd be surprised at the number of emails that we see that are people that think that they're being clever, and the email opens with, look, I know you get thousands of these, but seriously, this one's going to change my life. And I'd much rather read, dear Mr. Stevenson, I have written a crime novel and I see that you represent these books, and I thought you might like mine. You know, that's way better. And then in terms of the query letter, I mean, the key is to put the central question of the novel in the query letter. I want to see where your character starts. It's the opening paragraph, and I want to see what is going to snap them out of their comfort where the novel starts. And I want the query letter to end by telling me what choices that character is going to have to make. Right. So you don't have to give away the ending in a query letter, but if the query is such and such has a nice life at home, and then suddenly her brother is kidnapped, and then in order to get him back, she must rob a bank. What is she willing to do to save her brother? Like that's classic. That will always go down really well, because you're leaving us with a question of what the character must do. So those are my tips.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, interesting. The whole business relationship thing, that is very true. I mean, it's probably quite similar to what we do as well in voiceover land. Voiceover agents, inevitably.
Write that one down, John.
You're trying to... It feels a little bit like a one-sided relationship before you get an agent, and then it sort of swings back the other way. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we're all people.
Yeah.
You know, we love great books, and but also, you know, we've got families and lives and stuff. And I think people can be like, you know, well, why are you on leave for 2 weeks? And it's like, well, because it's, you know, it's amazing to be able to do this part of the arts, but it's also a job. So if you've sent someone a manuscript and they're on holidays, you know. So it's just sort of understanding that the person, the evil overlord agents on the other side of the phone or email are people too, and that I think goes such a long way.
Yeah, and they just want an easy life as much as possible. Want you to make things as simple as possible for them, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think that's the other key, is that no publisher, no agent is the automatic shortcut. You know, you still got to sit down and write the book, and that never gets easier. So just keep writing the next one. That's my other tip, is while you're submitting anything, be writing your next work, because you never know who's gonna, you know, we all hope, and for anyone listening, you know, I hope that where you've sent your manuscript. It's great. Let's do this one right now. But you never know when the conversation might be what's next, and you want to have that in your bag and be like, well, actually, I'm halfway through such and such and such, and that makes you very appealing because it shows you're a hard worker, but also it shows that you're a career, a driven and committed writer, and that your eggs aren't all in the one basket. And it's just good for mental health when you're sending things out. Just to have that distraction of something new and exciting to work on.
So now you're not failing like we are. Do you feel
like what we are?
Like what we are. Do you feel like the pressure is off a little bit now you're published? Or does it always feel like the next book is sort of weighing heavy on your shoulders?
The pressure is different. The pressure is less sort of industry-wise of, how can I get this book and make people take notice, or how do I set a career up in writing? Does every book is a brick in the wall, but you're always sort of hoping, well, I hope this leads to the next sort of stage of my career, I guess that's a little bit less, but more so than ever before. I've now got a lot more readers being like, when's the next one? What's it about? When can I buy it? Will it be good?
It's got to be good.
So it's a lot more of that kind of pressure, which is different, but I'm probably feeling about the same level just across the board.
Yeah.
That's quite a long pause, wasn't it?
Pause there.
Oh, sorry. Did I not?
I was expecting someone else to weigh in with a question.
Should I keep some of these say do?
No, if we've run out of writing questions, we were wondering the demise and end of Neighbours. Has that been a big thing in Australia, or was it just in the UK that we had a national day of mourning and a bank holiday for it? Or...
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal. It was all over the news.
Yeah.
I used to watch Neighbours as a kid, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But I recognise some of the people that sort of came back for the finale.
I think that's everyone, isn't it? It's one of these things where it's ending. And, oh, no, it's ending. When did you last watch it? 1999. Why? What's that got to do with it? I'm still upset it's ending.
It's a lot like the libraries, wasn't it? Everyone's gets upset that the libraries are closing. I think, when was the last time you went to a library? About 30 years ago.
Oh, I love a library. I'm in there all the time. But with Neighbours, it used to be the dinner, or here it used to be on at 6 p.m. while you're eating dinner on the free-to-air television. But now we've got streaming. You just put on whatever.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's had that period in their life where not only do they watch Neighbours in 1999, but, there's a year when you couldn't miss it. You just got sucked into all of the interweaving timelines, and we would just watch it every night for about a year and be like, oh, well, we can't miss it because this is going to happen or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone has that fond memory, but it's a shame, I think it's a shame that it got cancelled because it's such a good starting point. I mean, obviously, small country like Australia, small population wise, any sort of acting gig is very healthy for young actors. But I think there's a lot of stuff, and people look at Margot Robbie started on Neighbours and all that kind of stuff, I think. But there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I think we're going to miss out on. The lighting tech's first gig, the script assistant's first gig. That was often it's Neighbours, and so I'm interested I hope that it doesn't sort of cut off the next generation of film industry people because it doesn't run anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin, you've changed my frivolous question and answered it seriously and made us all a little bit sad now. It actually has. There's a bit of it's ripped out the heart of some of them, Australia and the UK's kind of media soul there. So that's
what's that?
I'm sure there's something else will rise up. The original programming.
I've not been this sad since Bouncer died.
That was a sad one. Yeah.
Do you remember there was an episode, wasn't there, where Bouncer had a dream?
Yes. There was.
Yeah.
Which one was Bouncer?
He was a dog.
He was the Labrador, wasn't he?
Oh, the Labrador. Yeah.
We had a dream sequence one that was an entire episode.
Yeah. I think that they went down the wrong line and then went, oh, do you know what? We filmed it, but I don't think we should have done that. Let's just make it a dog's dream. And then we'll just reset to where we were.
Yeah. Was it Dallas where they had a massive backtracking on the dream thing?
It was Bobby, wasn't it? Bobby died. And then it was all
the whole
dream.
thing. The whole thing was a dream.
That's a good example of someone who they've got 500 episodes to write, and the writers' room has just gone, No one's going to fire us for doing this ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
Let's just
Like
do
a
it.
series of dares that just get more and more and more until you end up with an episode that is just a dog's dream.
Yeah, exactly. I on the musical comedy side, I wrote a song. This was like 15 years ago when I was bad at comedy, but we wrote a song about neighbours, which is called "Don't Get Married on Neighbours," because everyone at your wedding will die. And it's like, why do they know it's got the highest fatality rate of any event, and they're like, no, we'll have a wedding, it'll be fine. It never is fine.
Yeah, this time it'll be fine.
It won't end in catastrophe.
I know there were
No.
terrorists at the last wedding, babe, but we're just going to try it again.
Benjamin, I and Dave actually were both attempting to write a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Can you give us some top tips, some secrets to writing a good thriller?
For me,
We should add that Dave is writing a comedy murder mystery as well.
Yeah.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is it going well?
It was going well.
Are you far through it, or are you?
No, well, no. I started doing it for NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing
Oh, yeah.
thingy last November, and I got about 2/3 of the way through in a month, and haven't looked at it since. But yeah, it was going pretty well. But
That's
yeah,
good.
comedy mysteries seem to have become a thing, don't they, these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's good too. If you're 2/3 of the way through and you haven't looked at it in a couple of months, that means that when you'll be able to see all the bits when you come back to it with sort of fresh eyes. Which is one of the tricks that I like to use, is finish a book, put it in the drawer for as long as your deadline will allow. Ideally, it's a month without looking at it, but sometimes it has to sort of just be 2 weeks. And then when you pick it up and just read it as a reader, you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yes.
Um,
That's what I'm expecting to happen when I next get to look at it.
But for mystery specifically, I mean, the thing that's most important to me in mystery novels is pace. You know, making sure that every scene or chapter is adding to the overall mystery. So you can't really have that sort of fluff in there, because if you're not learning something about the mystery, then it's just wasted space, and I tend to cut it out.
Yeah.
And that's also quite satisfying if there's a chapter that looks like you're not learning anything, but you are, and then the detective sort of reveals it. And then I think one of the things that I like in mystery novels is, you know, I think, like I said before about rules and the genre, the reader sort of knows what you're doing. So the reader knows there's going to be a dead body and a murderer unmasked and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that really bugs me sometimes is when novelists that write a murder mystery that opens with a suicide, you know before you've opened the book that it's not suicide, or but like we know, and so the longer it takes for the detective to realize something, and it doesn't even matter how realistic the world or the investigation is, I as a reader am waiting for the murder mystery to start because I've bought a murder mystery.
You're screaming at them.
Yeah, so you have to be sort of aware of what the reader reading your book will do. The same as, you know, when you're doing your red herrings, they know they're red herrings. Like, so you have to sort of be in two minds at once as reader, and meeting but subverting the reader's expectations at the same time. And then the other thing is just how important the denouement is, and how important that will feel depending on how many clues are through the book. And crime novels, you know, crimey ones versus sort of detective mysteries. Crime novels can sort of get away with having a couple of clues that give things away. For mystery novels, I really think you need to have a clue in every chapter, at least, if not on almost every page, so that it really kind of spins together.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I'd kind of separated those genres in that way quite as much as you have. Yeah, so crime being different to mystery.
Well, crime can sort of evolve as the book goes on, depending on, you know, what the characters are doing and what happens. So it doesn't necessarily, you know, they'll often have twists, but you can sort of have your heroes sort of move through different scenes of antagonism, not necessarily different antagonists, and then the plot sort of develops what's happening further. So the first suspect gets murdered, or, you know, a James Patterson-y kind of style thing is, and then it all leads to the vice president or whatever, and is the bad guy or whatever. And it's sort of, that doesn't matter quite as much because it's more about the journey and maybe it's about the action scene at the end or those kind of things. Whereas a golden age mystery novel, I think, you need every suspect to have been able to commit the crime and have motivations to commit the crime. And then the first third is setting up the murder. The second third is setting up all the suspects. And then the back third is ticking off those suspects one by one. And you start with your most likely red herring, as in the one that the readers expect to be the red herring. You strip back first and reveal that they aren't the killer. And then you reveal the last one that you pull back. It needs to be the least likely killer, so that they're convinced that it's not a red herring. And then it is a red herring, and then you reveal the real killer. So the killer can never be the least likely or the most likely. And you pull back the most likely first, you pull back the least likely second last, and then you pull back the killer. And that means that readers go, like I said before, the reader knows what they're going. They're reading through and they're like, okay, here's the red herring. Oh, here's the real killer. I knew that taxi driver was only in it for 3 pages and was a bit suspicious. Oh, it was never the taxi driver. It was actually a main character with motive. They've also got to be main characters, I think, the killers. Yeah. It can't be somebody who's been briefly seen in a janitor's jacket in 2 pages. I think that's a bit disappointing always. So but those are some more rules I try and stick to.
That's good.
Fabulous.
Good answer.
Yeah.
No worries. And what's your book? Sorry, Dave is doing the comedy mystery. And is it John or Tom that's writing the...
Yeah, me, John. Mine is, I suppose it's more of a sort of, it's kind of a police procedural, but it's, I don't know. It's, I don't really know. I'm just writing it and seeing what happens. But it's,
great.
It's quite, I'd say it's quite sort of character driven. Very much from the point of view of the 2 cops who are running this particular case, and the friction between them and the people that they're interviewing, the people that they're sort of rubbing up against. I suppose it is. I'm trying to really focus on their characters, which I think might be a mistake actually, because I think often in sort of detective books, the detectives don't really have a change. Do you know what I mean? They don't go through that character arc because I think presumably the theory is that there's going to be a whole series of them. And so they don't, do you know what I mean?
They can't keep changing every book. Otherwise
exactly.
Completely lose.
I think that's interesting because I think that they should change. And I think that it depends on the type of book, really. Books that are in very lengthy series that have returning detectives, and the detective is sort of just a cipher for the mystery. Those are sort of those would fly whether it was a returning detective or not. It's all on the plot mechanics and the cleverness of the plot.
It's definitely not that.
But like people like Kate Atkinson. Kate Atkinson has great depth of her police leads, such that you're more invested in the character than almost the investigation. Or even small changes of people's getting together or not getting together. That kind of thing holds a lot of series together.
They can still learn something, can't they? Without changing their,
provided they're not divorced alcoholics at the start and divorced alcoholics at the end. I think you're okay.
Hey, that's a good idea for a detective character. That if they were like if they had a drinking problem. Someone should do that. Wow.
That's innovative.
I might have to tweak the book a little bit now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. Obviously, there's everything works in context. I'm just being mean there. Sorry.
Does anybody have any other questions?
No, I think I feel like I want to go away and start reading my book now. Start putting these tips to some sort of good use.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. Thank you, Benjamin.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And
thanks for turning up, Benjamin. As we said.
Thanks for popping in.
Just slip that one in again. No, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for your time. That's really interesting. And your book will be coming out in the next few days as this goes live, I believe, in the UK.
Yes.
So we will pop a link to it in our show notes.
Thank you.
And good luck with it.
Thanks very much, and
Yeah.
good luck with both of your books as well. They sound really interesting, and yeah, I hope to see them on shelves.
We hope to just actually finish them. That's
Yeah,
the start. You know, let's just get to the
That'll
end
be
of
enough.
the books and then think about shelves.
That's good. Getting it done is the. Have you done this podcast since? Like, did you do the first episode of the podcast when you wrote the first word of the books, or it's always been called the Failing Writers Podcast, and you've been doing it a while, and you've just started writing books in the last year or something?
Well, it's always been the Failing Writers Podcast. Both of these books, I think I'm right in saying, John, started out as challenges that we've set ourselves throughout this podcast of writing the first page of this or something in this style. And both of mine and John's, we both liked them enough to think, do you know what? Let's write the rest of this story.
Oh, cool. So it is linked in with the. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you should get each writer to give you an element that you have to work in, like a dog dream sequence. I need to see that in both crime novels by the end of your next chapter.
That would quite possibly fit in mine, I think.
A dog dreaming about getting murdered at a wedding.
And then imagine if you get published and your publisher's like, I love the book, but this dream sequence in the middle is just, what were you thinking?
Well, that's a deal breaker. The deal's off.
Yeah, the deal's
That
off.
stays.
I'm taking my £1 million and I'm walking away. And you're like, Benjamin Stevenson? No!
What a nice chap.
And he had some good things to say as well, which is
handy.
it is
isn't
always
it?
handy.
I mean, if we had a guest on who didn't have any good things to say, that would be, that'd be the death of the show, wouldn't
One
it?
of these days, we'll actually listen to actually take it on board and do something with it.
I
Won't
don't know. I won't promise
I
anything.
feel like we're slowly doing that. Probably slower than most people.
Yeah.
It is getting hammered into us,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's all having an effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like traffic fumes into a blackberry growing at the side of the road.
Yeah. Should you pick
Well,
it or not?
Everyone says not, but they do look juicy, don't
They
they?
do. Sometimes a dog has done a little wee-wee on it as well.
Yeah,
if
but
you're
it all
lucky.
adds a little, little element of danger. That's what I want. That's what I want in my fruit. A little bit of danger.
Are we still talking about writing?
I don't. I
You are
think
very
so.
edgy with your fruit, aren't you, Dave? You always have been.
I
You always
am.
have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
Blindfold me and give
Don't-
me a
don't
lemon
even wash
or
it.
an apple, but don't tell me which. Lovely. That was an interview, but we've got a competition coming up, haven't we?
We have indeed.
We
should,
have.
We should big this up.
Yes.
We should give it the reverence and the fireworks that it deserves.
Yeah. We can't tell you everything about it because the whole point is that you have to listen to next week's episode in order to enter the
But
competition.
what can we tell
Yeah,
them?
we could tell them that there's a rather large first prize
We could.
and some pretty cool second prizes as well, runners-up prizes.
Yeah. What have we got? Hang on. Let me just have a look. What have you got in your pockets? 'Cause I've got a couple.
I've got
of,
€2.
I've got a couple of hundred.
That's
What?
good.
Oh, I've got a little. That's a bit of a bathroom plug. But I've got a couple of hundred here. What have you got there?
Could probably
What
get
can we-
50 together.
Yeah,
We can
Tom.
top it up to 300.
Come on.
I reckon we can go a bit more than that, can't we?
Should we chuck in some copies of Scrivener as well as runners-up prizes?
Yes.
Yes, because we should mention that Scrivener, the lovely people at Scrivener, have decided. I mean, they only do it to probably the best podcasts
I mean, obviously.
in the world.
I think so.
But,
I think it's limited
yeah.
to that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They've got pretty strict sponsorship rules.
Mm.
Yep.
But they have very kindly decided to sponsor our competition this year.
Yeah.
Which does mean that we have a much bigger prize. And like John says as well, some copies of Scrivener to give away as runners-up prizes,
Yeah.
which is incredibly useful because it is a very good bit of kit, very useful.
It is.
Very useful.
Both of the books that I've so far failed to finish have been partially written on Scrivener.
Yeah.
I mean, how
So-
far would you have got without Scrivener?
I
Who
wouldn't have
knows?
even got. No, it wouldn't have even started.
Exactly.
So yes.
Tell you what though, Dave, when it comes to rearranging them and pulling the bits and putting them back together again,
Yep.
you will be loving the fact that you've done them on Scrivener
That's true.
and not on a Word doc.
That
That
is
is
true.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God my first draft wasn't on Microsoft Word.
that will save you hours
Yeah.
of moving stuff and rejigging.
So it's great that we've actually done it make us sound professional. We've actually got a proper sponsor for this competition. We've got a proper sponsor. We got a proper prize. What have we actually got to do to win it though?
That's a very good point. I mean, really people need to tune in next week to find out all of the details. However, we can tell you that this year we've decided to make the theme love stories based on our very recent previous episode where we wrote some love stories. We thought, let's do that. Let's have a competition. 500-word love stories.
And as we'll explain next week as well. But obviously, if you listen to the episode previous, our love stories were a little bit different.
Yeah.
And
in fact, they probably couldn't describe them as love stories. But there was stories themed.
We're not expecting anyone to do anything better than what we did, though, are we? They don't have to be that
they were
good.
themed. They had some sort of theme of love.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is, it doesn't have to be. It can be, but it doesn't have to be a sort of a classic romance.
Yeah.
But it could be. But it could just be. It could be a bit of a horror type thing that involves a core story of love. And obviously next week as well, when you tune in, there will be a phrase that needs to be included in the story as well, so everyone starts.
As long as there's a bit of love in it, on it, or near it,
Yeah.
that's enough.
No, but it could be unrequited love. It could be weird stalkery love, like my story from the other week. Do you know what it can
But
be?
love is the main theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And isn't that true of life, Tom?
yes, very much so, John. That's a lovely a lovely observation. That
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
love.
Sometimes it's unrequited love, John. Sometimes it's true love.
Sometimes it's a little bit scary. So yes, tune in next week. You'll find all the details and you'll have your chance to win £300 cash money
Exciting.
in your bank account. Yeah.
And also next week, we've got something else quite exciting.
How can we have something else? How can
I
there
know,
be
it's
on top
ludicrous.
of £300?
It shouldn't be
It's too
allowed.
much.
I'm not sure it is allowed.
Much.
But I think this is particularly exciting because both of you two have been talking about writing plays. Next week, we've got an interview with a playwright,
Ooh.
which is a first on this
Whoa.
podcast.
Yeah.
But not only a playwright, but one of America's most produced playwrights.
Bloody hell.
In fact, I think I'm right in saying that he's been America's most produced playwright for the last 18 years.
Is he still alive? It's not like someone from,
He's still alive.
from like 18.
He's still with
it's
us.
not early 1900 thing.
No.
John, this
That's good.
sounds like a proper decent mystery guest.
Either of
doesn't
you
it?
want to hazard a guess who that
the
is?
most produced playwright in America for the last 18 years.
It is. It is.
Good grief. Is it
Mhm.
is it the Tony from the Tony Awards?
It's not Tony. He's not called Tony.
No.
No.
God.
Shall I just
don't
tell
know.
you?
Yeah.
Shall I
that's
just tell you?
probably yeah.
It's John Rand.
What? John Rand.
John Rand, one of America's most produced playwrights for the last
Have I just
18
fallen
years.
into a weird parallel universe or something? I'm not entirely sure what's happening now. John,
That is a fact, is an actual fact. Unfortunately, it's not me. It's another John Rand.
Oh, some other John Rand.
Let me explain to you how I know John Rand and how I know that he's a playwright.
Well, I can guess what the connection
I'm
is.
going to tell you a very strange but completely true little story.
Okay.
Could you add some sort of mysterious atmospheric music here, please, Tom?
Oh, I've already started it.
Oh, you
already started
there it is. Yeah, that's good. Gets me in the mood. Okay, so it was the autumn of 2008. I was sitting by the fireside, listening to the wind howling. No, I received a friend request on Facebook from someone that I didn't know from the US. Okay, so I ignored it. And then I was probably like a week later, another person in the US befriended me. And I was starting to wonder what's going on. And then I got an email from a guy called John Rand in America who said, and sadly, I don't actually have that original email, so this is from memory, but he said something along the lines of, so this is weird. I've just been contacted by one of my oldest friends who was wondering why I didn't accept his friend request. So I said to him, You can't miss me. I'm the John Rand wearing a fat ballerina suit. Yep, says the other guy. That's who I befriended. And then he looks online, and sure enough, there's me. Yeah, a doppelganger. Another John Rand in an inflatable fat ballerina suit. It's very, very weird.
What?
And it has been said that we don't look entirely dissimilar by a couple of people.
What are the chances?
So, yeah,
of
so I
that?
look online, and sure enough, there he is, John Rand, lives in the US. He's dressed in a fat ballerina
We
suit.
need to put these pictures of fat ballerina John Rand.
Oh, yeah, we'll put them on the blog.
Yes.
But John Rand, he's a professional writer. So I'm going to let him complete the story in his own words. Okay, this is an email here that he sent to another podcast, This American Life, several years ago. And they were looking for stories about coincidences because this shit gets weirder. All right. So he tells that first bit of the story that I just told you. And then he continues. This is him now. I was in New York. He was in the UK. When you stop and think about how many inflatable ballerina suits are out there in the world, and within that group, how many people wore them in their Facebook profile photos in 2008, and within that group, how many are named John Rand, the brain ceases to make sense of how coincidences work. It turns out this was the same John Rand whose emails I'd started receiving a year prior because our addresses were nearly identical. So at the time, my email, it's not anymore, but my email address was john@johnrand.co.uk, and his was john@johnrand.com. And after a little correspondence, we discovered that both John Rands majored in theatre at university and have made careers in the arts. The British John Rand as a very successful voiceover artist, and the other one, I made that up. He didn't put that. No, he did actually put that. And the other one, America's most produced playwright. Not only do we both make a living from our art, but anonymously so, neither of us are household names, nor be recognised on the street. That is true. To this day, I receive weekly emails from advertising agencies with requests to record radio promos for the latest Pixar film or body spray. Sadly, I can't oblige and dutifully forward the message across the world, and this has become as routine as watering the plants. And then he goes on to say, the coincidences didn't end there. And this is all true. The morning of my grandfather's funeral a few years ago, I received an email from a Josie Rand, that's my sister,
Yeah.
with subject, Grandad.
What?
I don't have a Josie in my family. Turns out the other John Rand's sister had emailed the wrong John Rand a eulogy. The main focus of the eulogy? Their grandfather's love of carpentry. My grandfather, whose funeral was also that day,
Yeah.
was also a master
What?
carpenter. He was a career stagehand and set builder on Broadway. I haven't confirmed if the other John Rand's grandfather did the same on the West End, but at this point, nothing would surprise me. He didn't, by the way, but he was a carpenter. So, finally, we even look sort of similar, according to several sources, including our respective spouses, but that's up for debate. My wife and I hope to visit London this year, and the top item on the agenda will be for the two John Rands to finally meet face to face, presumably to discover even more coincidental parallels. We did share a concern, however, that in occupying the same space, we may very well cause the space-time
Yes.
continuum to implode upon itself.
Mm.
Thanks for reading John Rand, US edition.
Wow, that is.
So there you go.
You know, when you said, John, that you had a story to tell us, I didn't think it was going to be that interesting. But that's a very, very interesting story. That's incredible.
It's quite weird, isn't it?
Wow. That's proper
Yeah.
coincidence, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the people running the simulation just got bored and copied and pasted a
But
little
then
bit.
they were
isn't it?
suddenly like-
It's copy and paste and
Yeah.
change a few bits.
And then suddenly they're like, shit, they've got to know each other.
yeah, they're going to meet.
What do we do now?
It's all going to collapse.
Just change
now.
some more stuff.
That's weird, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've never spoken to him, which is
Well,
quite
you've been in
exciting.
contact with him for 14 years?
Yeah, for ages. I mean, we don't.
And only
we don't-
now have you asked him to come on the podcast.
Yeah, well, I thought it was.
It didn't
Any-
occur to you at the
it's
start. Oh, we're starting a podcast. We could get a really big name. No,
as
leave
good a
it,
time
leave it.
as any.
I'll save that
as
for a
good a
year's
time
time.
as any.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's
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 crazy,
ridiculous.
It
isn't
is.
it?
It's very, very weird. So yeah, tune in next week, and you'll get to hear my doppelganger, and I'll get to speak to my doppelganger for the first time, and it'll also be very nice to talk to someone who writes for theatre.
That's,
Do you know the only thing that worries me a little bit about next week is that you'll like the other John Rand more than me.
I think that's pretty much nailed on, isn't it?
No, don't be daft, John. That's ridiculous.
What if you invite him to take over as like the honorary John Rand on the podcast, and then
No, I don't.
and then
I don't think
he'll like begin to infiltrate my life. He'll get to know Katie, and he'll break up our marriage, and then
This is like single white
before
John.
I know it, he'll be living in my house.
From what you've said, there's a decent chance that he already does a podcast with a Tom Turner and a Dave Baird in America. He's already the successful writer. The successful writers
I haven't
podcast.
asked him that actually.
That's all he is.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just the mirror image. it's like a split universe thing. That could have been you, kind of thing. Yeah,
It is a bit weird, isn't it? It's very,
that
very
is- I mean,
weird.
It's just
Yeah.
That is
it'll be
weird.
fascinating, won't it, to find out what other coincidences there
That's-
are.
Yeah. Hey, we could maybe prepare like a list. We could play a game and prepare like a list of John Rand UK edition
and
facts,
see if he,
and then John Rand US has to say whether
Yeah.
they coincidentally
Yeah.
apply to him
yeah,
too.
yeah, favorite colours,
Yeah.
favourite biscuits, that kind of the important stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's got to be some sort of pun-based radio competition type name that we can come up with for that feature.
I'm going to leave that
Surely.
to you, Birdie. That's a Birdie special. That is.
Yeah.
The only story I've got that's anything like that is based on the fact that my dad is also called Dave Baird.
That is so weird.
And you got some of the same same names in the family as well, haven't you? Is it?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We used to live in the same
Shut
house.
up!
What are the
Yeah.
chances?
That is mental.
Yeah, I know, it's mad.
That is mental.
You're going to say you're both men now.
Yeah. We're both
What?
men, and I once... Which way round was it? Did I once get his tax return?
That's
You
a
got mine or
fascinating
something like
story.
that.
Either way
Yeah.
around, Dave, that's a great story.
Actually, Tom,
It doesn't have quite the same...
you've got a
but-
doppelganger as well, because I was at Channel 4 a few years ago, and the engineer said Tom Turner's just been in here before you.
Yeah, he's a successful actor.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe there is something in this parallel thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what, look at
Yeah.
what he could have won.
What was funny though is that I had quite a long conversation with the sound engineer about you, but we were both talking about completely different
Yeah.
people and didn't realise it for quite a long time.
This all reminds me of Dave Gorman's kind of breakthrough thing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Obviously been around a bit before, but that was his the big one, wasn't it? That kind of did
That
it.
was
with
his
the
show,
whole
wasn't it?
Dave
Mm.
Gorman thing and the
Googling
PowerPoint
his name.
presentation and the
Yeah.
that was good. That
Was. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to next week.
I tell you what, we've packed a lot in this
Wow.
week.
wow.
But that next week the competition is going to be something
Yeah.
special. So tune in, otherwise you won't be able to enter, and that £300 will go to someone else, and you'll kick yourself for the rest of
Yeah,
time.
I'll tell you what else
You'll
we've
cry
done.
for
We've written
days.
some
Yeah.
adverts for Scrivener as part of the sponsorship.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed that, didn't we?
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit too much.
What we're going to do is we'll end this episode with the ditty that John wrote because it's fantastic as a little tease forward to the competition next week. So
Yeah.
enjoy this musical interlude by John Rand.
Mm.
Not the talented good one, unfortunately. Just our John Rand who wrote this.
The
one,
other
yeah.
John
Yeah.
Rand.
If American John Rand wrote a ditty, it'd probably be longer, better, and what have you. But this is what we've got. So
And be in
try
tune
and
as well.
enjoy it. Try and enjoy it.
Are you a scribbler? Can't help but nibble away at ideas on a sheet. A writing practitioner who's always wishing your book could be complete. Don't be a prisoner, you just need Scrivener to help you write your things. It's sort of similar to being given a gigantic pair of wings. With Scrivener you can fly, helps you order and demystify. The process of writing is no longer frightening, you're done in the blink of an eye. Whether you're a plotter of the next Harry Potter or flying by the seat of your pants, get yourself shot of that dusty old dock and let Scrivener teach you to dance.
So just to clarify, that's a bit of poetic license right? It won't actually teach you to dance. What we're trying to say is, Scrivener just allows you to write more easily. Like, you can refer to your research alongside your writing, or get an overview of your chapters, or reorder chapters just by dragging and dropping. Look, it basically makes the whole process of writing a book more intuitive and enjoyable. Just need to clear that up in case we start getting letters from lawyers saying,
My client has broken their leg because you claimed Scrivener will enable them to fly, and they could not fly.
you know what I'm saying. Hello?
Where's everybody gone?